In my past life, my sister and I married into the Johnson family at the same time. She hated the eldest son, Ethan, because he was gloomy and paranoid. So, she quickly chose the second son, Lucas, who was known for his cold, aesthetic nature and devotion to Buddhism. However, she couldn't handle the loneliness and ended up having an affair during their marriage. As a result, Lucas bound her with Buddhist prayer beads and threw her to the wealthy elites to humiliate and toy with her. Meanwhile, I married Ethan, a hopeless romantic. I managed all his assets and lived a life of love and prosperity. In a fit of rage, my sister Emily pushed me off a high building, and I fell to my death, my body shattered into pieces. When I opened my eyes again, we had both returned to the day of our engagement. This time, Emily's face was twisted with malice as she suddenly shoved me into Lucas's arms. Lucas had already admired me for a long time and wouldn't marry anyone else but me. She declared, "Go on, sister. Don't be shy. Call him husband already." I sneered as I watched Emily shyly throw herself into Ethan's embrace. My dear sister. Let me guess, how long do you think you'll survive in the hands of that twisted pervert who enjoys playing with men dressed as women? Engagement banquet just a moment ago. Emily was still telling our parents she would only marry Lucas. Yet, the next second, she pushed me straight into his arms. Her delicate, flawless face carried a malice and madness far beyond her years. Lucas had already fallen for me. He wouldn't marry anyone else. Don't be shy, sister. Hurry and greet him, call him husband already, without waiting for my response. She suddenly pushed me into his chest. Her unexpected action left everyone in the hall stunned. I instinctively reached out to grab the table beside me for support, but a pair of strong hands caught me first. There was a faint scent of sandalwood around him, Lucas. He was a true gentleman, studying me with a calm expression before quickly letting go. "Miss Sophia, be careful," he said in a deep, unreadable voice. As expected of a devout Buddhist raised in temples since childhood, he carried himself with an air of detachment, as if removed from worldly affairs. If I hadn't known from my past life that he had used prayer beads to restrain Emily for 3 days before throwing her to the rich playboys, I might have believed in his saintly image. Lowering my gaze, I shyly murmured, "Thank you." Men like Lucas care about appearances, especially powerful men. If I showed even the slightest discomfort or distaste, he might become wary of me, making the days ahead even harder. Emily had orchestrated this move well, forcing me into this marriage. When I looked up, I saw a flash of triumph in her eyes. She had been reborn too, and had returned to this crucial moment. But even if she hadn't pushed me toward Lucas, I would have chosen him myself. He was merely indifferent to women and uninterested in love. But his wealth was endless, and he gave his wife complete freedom so long as she didn't cross his bottom line. Ethan, on the other hand, was the opposite. Not only was he depraved and perverse, but he also had a fetish for men dressed as women. Everyone around him was a well-dressed beast in disguise. In my past life, the only reason Ethan treated me well was because I controlled the company's financial lifeline. I held the power to destroy him at any moment, so he pretended to be a devoted husband under my watchful eye. If Lucas was a ruthless wolf, Ethan was a venomous snake, cunning and cruel. Congratulations. Dear sister, you've chosen the absolute worst path for yourself. The people around us were already looking at Emily differently. Still, she quickly regained her composure, flashing a soft, gentle smile. "My little sister has always been timid," she said sweetly. "I've taken care of her since we were children. I knew she was very shy, so I thought I'd help her out." She turned to me with a fake look of sincerity and said, "Sophia, your dream has finally come true. Make sure to cherish your new husband." "Lucas is such a refined and gentle man," she emphasized, every word her tone dripping with false sweetness. She was completely convinced that I would end up suffering under his control. But for Ethan, this scene just made Emily seem even more considerate and well-mannered. After all, Ethan was notorious for his debauchery, and his parents had long given up on trying to discipline him. Finding a wife who could keep him in check was exactly what he wanted. His lips curled into a dazzling smile. My, what a thoughtful sister you are. Emily casually tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and smiled seductively. Every movement she made was full of charm. Ethan was completely mesmerized. Without hesitation, he reached out his hand and invited her to the first dance of the evening. Emily had never liked studying or thinking too hard. Her greatest loves were dressing up, dancing, and being the center of attention. She had walked straight into his trap. When the dance ended, thunderous applause filled the entire hall. That night, Emily was the center of attention. She had completely ensnared Ethan. Any woman with real experience knew that men needed to be kept on a short leash for a while. Only then would they truly cherish what they had. But Emily was in too much of a hurry, terrified that I might steal him from her. That very night, she followed Ethan straight to a hotel. She just couldn't wait any longer. The next day, Emily called me on video, eager to flaunt her victory. She was draped in a silk camisole, her neck adorned with a massive sapphire necklace. "Love bites," she called, it covering her skin with a smug smile. "Sophia, isn't this necklace beautiful? It's a top-tier piece from the auction, worth over 30 million. Ethan was so gentle with me last night. A real man should be generous and considerate, just like him." Of course, she added, "You're marrying into the Johnson family, too. But tradition says the eldest son inherits everything. I will be Mrs. Johnson, the future head of the Fortune Group, while you'll only get some yearly dividends. We're born 3 minutes after me, so I'll always be above you. Even in marriage, I've won again. Sometimes you just have to accept fate." I let out a soft laugh and countered, "Emily, don't you think you're celebrating a bit too soon? Everyone knows Ethan has more lovers than he can count. As soon as you marry him, you'll be busy dealing with mistresses 3, 4, and 5 who'll give you plenty of headaches." Emily lifted her chin confidently. "That's in the past. Last night, he swore to me that I'd be his only woman from now on. Even made a vow if he ever cheats, he'll never be able to get it up again." She scoffed as if I should believe her. He also said that before marriage, it's normal for men to have their fun. A guy as handsome and rich as him, of course, has women throwing themselves at him. But from now on, he's mine, and soon he'll be completely obsessed with me. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Men's promises were worth believing. Pigs would be climbing trees by now. We were talking about Ethan, someone who had grown up drowning in debauchery. Every inch of him was rotten to the core. With a smirk, I taunted her, "You sound so sure of yourself." Emily's smile widened with pride. "Of course, there's never been a man I couldn't get," she added. "He already proposed to me. The wedding is next month. No budget limits, everything will be just as I want." Then she warned, "Sophia, if you're regretting anything now, it's too late. Ethan is your brother-in-law. You'd better stay away from him. If I ever catch you trying to seduce him, I'll break your legs." Her threat was serious, and I didn't doubt she meant it. After all, in my past life, she had pushed me off a building, leaving me a shattered corpse. Naturally, I wouldn't tell her about Ethan's issues. That man had played around so much that he had caught certain diseases. Not only was he depraved in his tastes, but sometimes he even went after animals. Just thinking about it made me sick to my stomach. Meanwhile, Lucas... we were officially engaged, though his cold, detached nature hadn't changed. As a devout Buddhist, he never appeared in person. Instead, he just sent me millions worth of exquisite jewelry. He was often meditating at a temple, discussing scriptures with monks, or flying abroad to seek wisdom from renowned spiritual masters. Rich but absent, uninvolved life was peaceful, and I lived in luxury with complete freedom. Meanwhile, Emily filled her social media with posts flaunting her love life, endless pictures of kisses, hugs, and glowing after bedtime. Not one to back down, I responded by showing off my collection of luxury jewelry, designer brands, and exclusive auction finds. My extravagant spending even became a trending topic online. The comments praised my wealth and independence, say, "Stunning, powerful woman with both money and beauty." My likes far outnumbered Emily's. After all, everyone in our circle knew exactly what kind of man Ethan was. Frustrated, Emily left a comment on my post. "Material wealth is meaningless. The greatest gift in life is love." I immediately replied, "Love is expressed through gifts." My dear husband just gave me something even more valuable. Isn't that what love's all about? If you don't have it, it must mean you don't want it. Right, that was the last straw. Furious, Emily called me on video, screaming insults. I hung up immediately, letting her stew in her own rage. Emily and Ethan's wedding was a grand spectacle. They bought an entire private island, a fleet of luxury yachts, and even a private jet for the occasion. The guest list was full of high profile figures, the kind who often appeared on TV. During the reception, Emily clung to Ethan's arm, making rounds to toast the female guests, brimming with pride. Ethan played along, keeping his arm protectively around her waist, shielding her from drinks, occasionally pinching her cheek affectionately. It all looked so sweet, except it was just muscle memory for him. He'd spent his entire life surrounded by women. Meanwhile, Emily was so blinded by love she didn't notice Ethan exchanging flirtatious glances with women at 5 different tables. These women weren't just guests, employees, or family. They were Ethan's exes and current lovers. Some had attended his bachelor party the night before. Some were even male models. Ethan had been the host of his own wedding ceremony. My past life, I had videos of their debauchery, using them as leverage to keep Ethan far from me. But clearly, Emily was still blissfully ignorant. She was so paranoid that something might happen between Ethan and me, she only dared to show off. Her ring when he was in the bathroom, she held up her hand proudly. "Sophia, isn't this ring beautiful? It's worth over 60 million. One of a kind, truly priceless." She looked at me with a triumphant smile. "Not to be rude, but the little trinkets you love to show off are nothing compared to this." I smiled, politely took a bite of my cake, and replied, "Well, at least my little trinkets belong to me." "But tell me, Emily, does that jewelry really belong to you?" Her face immediately darkened. Everyone knew Ethan was rich, but not that rich. Truth was, these weren't his assets. They belonged to the Johnson family's jewelry collection. He had to request permission to wear them and return them afterward. Her expression stiffened. "Of course it's mine. What do you think it belongs to you instead?" She looked around at the grand venue, full of high-profile guests, all here too. "Celebrate their wedding. When you and Lucas get married, it won't be nearly as lively. And let me warn you, stay away from my husband." I casually tossed my finished plate into the trash and gave her a serene smile. "Relax. I have no interest in garbage." But she wasn't entirely wrong. My wedding to Lucas wouldn't just be less extravagant. It was the complete opposite of a spectacle. Simply chose an auspicious date, signed the marriage certificate, and that was it. Immediately after, he took me to a luxury real estate office and gifted me an entire villa estate worth billions, registering it in my name. His reason? "You're so well behaved. You deserve a reward." His generosity was staggering. Even though I now controlled the financial assets of Fortune Group, I wouldn't have dared spend money as extravagantly as he did. Then he delivered. His classic domineering CEO speech, "I'm busy. I don't have time to entertain you or do whatever you want. Don't bother me unless it's important. If I need you, I'll come to you. And don't argue with my parents in front of me or get involved with other men." Then he left. He was every woman's dream husband, filthy rich, completely absent, and giving total freedom. I had finally hit the jackpot. But I hadn't come back from the dead just to be a trophy wife. Wealth was meaningless without power. I had tasted the absolute freedom that came with money and influence, and in this life, I knew I had to reach even greater heights. So I started building my own empire. I made a fortune in the stock market, then expanded, aggressively buying land at auctions, collecting rare paintings and jewelry, and investing in influencer incubators and media networks. With my ability to foresee trends, every move I made was a guaranteed win. 10 days later, Lucas unexpectedly returned and invited me to dinner. In my past life, he had left the night of Emily's wedding and retreated to a monastery for 3 months. He only came back for his grandfather's birthday. But this time, he was unusually polite, personally brewing me tea. "Sophia, in just 10 days of marriage, you've spent over 100 million, he said calmly, unreadable. I wasn't fazed. I took the teacup and sipped slowly. As expected of the Johnson family, even their tea was top tier and priceless. I smiled and said, Well, black cards have a daily spending limit of 10 million. Otherwise, I'd have spent even more. He smirked faintly. Aren't you afraid I'll call you a spendthrift? I set the cup down and gave him an easy smile. Only useless men complain about women spending money. But you, Lucas, are no ordinary man. If I wanted the stars in the sky, you'd bring them down for me without hesitation. A woman should marry a true man like you. Besides, all the money I spent was an investment. Every cent would generate returns, and since we're married, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. No man could resist such flattery. Sure enough, a hint of amusement flickered in his gaze. Seeing my cup was empty, he poured me more tea, slow and deliberate. You really are different from other women. Most are satisfied with small luxuries. But you're investing in real estate, antiques, stocks, making waves in the market. Marrying me must feel like settling, he said. That was his way of acknowledging my financial acumen. I chuckled. Not at all. It's just that you have the resources. Without them, I wouldn't be able to make such large-scale investments in such a short time. There was some truth in my words. Yes, I had been bold in my investments because Lucas had enough wealth to support them. And while the profits I made were legally marital assets, split equally between us, the reputation I was building in the business world was entirely mine. Once I established my empire, it would belong to me alone. No matter how much gold Lucas gilded his name with, people would whisper behind his back that he was living off his wife's success. Lucas didn't beat around the bush. You can invest and start your own business however you like. If you need resources, connections, or funding, just ask. But today, I came because a friend of mine is interested in a piece of land you own in the southern suburbs. He wants to build a shopping mall there. Name your price. The southern suburbs were currently under development, with hospitals, schools, and office buildings relocating there. Building a large shopping mall would be a guaranteed gold mine. I'd originally planned to develop it myself, but later decided it wasn't worth the slow returns. Brick-and-mortar businesses were bound to decline in the coming years, so it wasn't worth tying up capital in them. I smiled and nodded graciously. We're family, aren't we? Your friend is my friend. Why talk about money? I said.
I'll have
The land title sent over first thing tomorrow. Lucas, the ever-detached Buddhist, actually froze with his teacup in hand. That land, it's the very one I bought on our wedding day after selling off the $1 billion estate he gifted me and pouring all my stock market earnings into it. If I sold it now, I'd make at least 4 times my original investment. Here I was, handing it over for free. Of course, I wasn't really that generous. I was employing the classic strategy of retreating to advance. If I didn't name a price, the only way for them to compensate me was by offering the highest market rate. If they lowballed me, it would just make them look bad. Lucas had seen all kinds of women in his life, but a woman like me who was both greedy and magnanimous at the same time was a first. He studied me for a long moment before finally asking, "What's your angle?" I kept a straight face, and without hesitation, blurted out, "Isn't it obvious? It's because I like you." 3 sentences each, subtly cornering him. For the first time, his lips curved into a smile that was different from his usual polite smirk. There was something almost boyish about it. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "Amuse? You expect me to believe that?" Clearly he didn't. He was smart enough to see through Emily's nonsense at the wedding. But this time, I wasn't lying. I explained, "You've met my parents. You know how they are opportunistic and self-serving? Even if I hadn't married, they would have sold me off to someone else for power and resources. You're objectively the best possible option. You prefer a quiet, detached lifestyle, and I prefer to focus on business and making money. Our partnership is a win-win." Lucas chuckled, his clear eyes glinting with interest. For his entire life, he'd been forced to stay in the background, told to be humble, never to overshadow his older brother. But I was different, bold, ambitious, unapologetically assertive. I was everything he'd never dared to be. Before long, he started taking me to gatherings with his inner circle. Unlike Ethan's so-called elite social circle full of spoiled trust fund brats indulging in vice, Lucas's circle consisted of true power players These were industry titans whose time was so valuable that getting a dinner with them required booking months in advance. Thanks to my ability to foresee trends, I impressed them quickly. Soon I wasn't just discussing business deals, I was being invited to their private gatherings for tea. Powerful men admired strength in women just as much as women admired strength in men. Lucas's attitude toward me changed dramatically. He started personally pouring my tea, preparing my favorite snacks, and even handling negotiations for prime office space I was eyeing. He took it upon himself to help me recruit top talent from the industry. His attentiveness was meticulous. On the grand opening day of my influencer incubator, Emily finally won favor with Mrs. Johnson, Ethan's mother. As a reward, she was given control over Fortune Group's hotel and jewelry business. She was all over the news, hailed as the ideal wealthy wife, graceful, capable, ambitious. But as both daughters-in-law of the Johnson family, things had to be fair. So I was assigned to manage the worst division, the fashion division. How bad was it? Since its launch, it had ranked dead last in profitability. No matter how much money was poured into hiring top designers, nothing worked. Over the past 5 years, they'd gone through at least 50 different creative directors, both domestic and international, without a single success. The industry openly mocked it as the biggest failure in Fortune Group's history. Clearly, this was meant to humiliate me. Lucas frowned slightly, displeased. Tourism is booming right now. I'll talk to my parents and get you reassigned, he offered. I waved him off confidently. I love turning the tide when the odds are against me. Just give me a month, wait and see. His lips curved slightly, admiration flickering in his gaze. I nodded firmly. Of course, there were some industries I wouldn't bet on. But reviving Fortune Group's fashion brand, that was something I'd done once before. It was precisely this achievement in my past life that had won over my highly critical in-laws and made them trust my judgment completely. But this time, I wasn't planning to stop at just domestic success. My goal was to push the brand into the top 50 luxury labels worldwide, reaching even greater heights. Lucas publicly expressed his trust in me, but deep down, he was still worried I might ruin the company's fashion division. For the first time, he stopped visiting temples and discussing philosophy with monks, and instead started following me everywhere. He was concerned someone inside the company might try to sabotage me, or that I wouldn't be able to handle the internal politics. But once he stepped into the company with me, he quickly saw I wasn't the type to be bullied. I fired 2/3 of the old staff, most of whom were just there for an easy paycheck, relying on connections rather than talent. They had driven away genuinely talented newcomers, stifling any chance of progress. When they tried to complain to higher management, Lucas personally shut them down. By that afternoon, they had all quietly resigned. Next, I went to the country's top art schools, asking professors to recommend their best students. Those who performed well were offered direct employment. Every week I held design competitions, with prizes: first place at $3,000, second at $2,000, third at $1,000. Winners were immediately hired as full-time designers. This way students could study while gaining real-world experience, and talented ones could secure jobs before graduating. It was an irresistible opportunity. The competitions were fierce, with young talents fighting tooth and nail for a chance. They got money and career prospects, while I gained fresh, high-quality designs at a fraction of the usual cost at the same time. I launched a digital marketing campaign to gain massive exposure. Finally, I held a fashion launch event, inviting industry leaders, socialites, and celebrities. No one dared to turn down an invitation from Fortune Group. They attended expecting just another formal networking event, only to be amazed by the designs. By the end of the show, every piece had been pre-ordered on the spot, and the entire new collection sold out. That move recovered a decade's worth of financial losses, and my name became a legend in the industry. Meanwhile, I also targeted Emily's hotel and jewelry businesses. It didn't take much to expose hygiene violations at her hotel's. Videos of towels being used to wipe toilet seats went viral. Then accusations surfaced that her jewelry designs were plagiarized. When aiming to take down an opponent, you go For the weakest spot, Emily, who had once boasted she'd always stay ahead of me, was hit hard. Desperate to save face, she poured a fortune into suppressing the negative publicity. But it was too late. People saw her for what she was, an incompetent fraud. Then came old Master Johnson's birthday. It was a small family gathering, just 3 tables of relatives. In the past, Ethan had always been the star showered with praise and flattery as the heir apparent. But this time, when I arrived arm in arm with Lucas, everything shifted. Relatives who had once ignored him now stood to toast him, offering words of admiration. In such moments, I modestly credited Lucas for everything. Even old Master Johnson himself offered Lucas a seat beside him, an unprecedented move. To me, these gestures seemed superficial, just empty displays. But for Lucas, who had never received such recognition before, it was monumental. That night, for the first time in his life, he drank in front of others. He got tipsy, and when we got home, he seduced me. His usually cold, detached eyes were clouded with desire. His toned 8-pack gleamed under the dim lights. He was surprisingly eager and enticing. I wasn't innocent, and with a man like him, it would be a waste not to enjoy the moment. Lucas, who had once lived like a celibate monk, was thoroughly broken in. After tasting freedom, he became insatiable. He clung to me constantly at night, and even sneaked in moments during the day. He also became more generous. First, he gifted me high-end jewelry and real estate, and he transferred 5%. A Fortune Group shares to me. It might seem small, but those shares brought in tens of millions in annual dividends. More importantly, they secured me a seat on the board of directors. As for Emily, after her business failures, she was removed from key positions and reassigned to minor projects, nothing more than a glorified retirement plan. When we crossed paths in the office, I just saw her as a shadow of her former self. I could see the bitterness in her eyes, the barely concealed envy.
Oh.
But since Lucas was always by my side, she couldn't lash out directly. Instead, she resorted to texting me. Emily sent a video call request, and I picked up unimpressed. Sophia's voice was low, seething with resentment. "You must be feeling pretty smug right now, Emily. Everyone's praising you, saying you're so capable, so amazing." I chuckled softly, my tone calm and deliberate. And why shouldn't I be? A brand that was irrelevant for 10 years became a sensation overnight the moment I took over. I've been featured in magazines and newspapers, hailed as the most legendary, rising star in fashion. Is there a problem with that? Emily's face flushed with fury. She snapped, "You just got lucky. What's there to be so proud of? If I had taken over that project, I would have done it even better. And even if you did succeed, so what? At the end of the day, my husband is the one inheriting the company. I'm the rightful Mrs. Johnson. Once Ethan inherits Fortune Group, the first thing I'll do is kick you out. Just wait and see." I smirked. "Kick me out? And how exactly do you plan on doing that? I own 5% of the company now. You'd better pray my dear husband stays passive and indifferent, or Fortune Group might just end up with a new master." With that, I hung up, leaving Emily seething with frustration, drowning in the realization she was facing a threat she'd never expected from that moment. She became obsessed with pushing Ethan to work harder, pressuring him into new investments and projects, urging him to prove himself. But Ethan had spent his entire life indulging in luxury and debauchery. He wasn't built for hard work. The more she pushed, the more he resented her. Sure enough, at the next family gathering, Ethan, usually composed and gentlemanly, lost his temper in front of everyone. His voice was sharp, his words dripping with disdain. "Can you just shut the hell up already? You keep comparing me to Lucas. If he's so amazing, why didn't you just marry him instead? You have the audacity to criticize me? If you even had half the brains of my sister-in-law, maybe you wouldn't have run the hotel business into the ground."
Marrying you was the worst damn luck of my life.
His furious outburst silenced the room. All eyes turned toward them. Emily, who had been spoiled and coddled her whole life, had never faced such public humiliation. Her face turned bright red, and her voice trembled with grievance. I did all this for you. You're the eldest son you're supposed to take on. More responsibility. The hotel's failure isn't just my fault. I asked for your help, but you were always too busy to care. She was a master at playing the victim, twisting the story to absolve herself of blame. But Ethan had grown up surrounded by women, and he'd seen every manipulation trick in the book. He'd long since lost patience for them. Cut the damn act, he spat, his face twisted in disgust. I've put up with this for too long. Then he turned and stormed off, leaving Emily humiliated, surrounded by whispers and judgmental stares. But I wasn't finished. That same night, I arranged for Ethan's true love to make a dramatic entrance, a stunning woman from Thailand, one of the most famous transgender women in the industry. Gorgeous, with an impeccable figure, and most importantly, someone who knew exactly how to seize the moment. I saw footage from my private investigator, only managed to stomach 0.01 seconds of it before shutting it off. It was vile. I anonymously forwarded the video to Emily, along with the name of the bar and the private suite number. Half an hour later, she stormed into the club live, and she wasn't alone. She had brought a whole entourage of friends, ready for war. But this time, Ethan didn't react the way he used to. In the past, whenever Emily caught him with other women, he'd let her cause a scene, letting her slap and chase off the mistresses to make her feel in control. But this time, Ethan protected the transgender woman. Not only that, but he turned around and slapped Emily twice. She was stunned, completely dumbfounded. Then she snapped, screaming, and lunged at Ethan, punching and kicking him in a blind. Rage. Ethan, already drunk and disgusted with her, didn't hold back. He fought back without mercy, his so-called friends. She had once cheered her on when she fought off Ethan's previous flings, but she did nothing to stop him this time. Instead, they just laughed and egged him on. It wasn't until a waiter came in to serve drinks and saw the chaos that security was finally called to break it up. Emily was rushed to the hospital with 3 broken ribs, a fractured nose, and a concussion. She had no idea this was just the beginning. Later that night, the Johnson family's close relatives all went to visit. Her in the VIP hospital suite, she lay there, wrapped in bandages, surrounded by lavish floral arrangements and fruit baskets. She soaked in the attention, enjoying the sympathy as everyone called her a victim and scolded Ethan for being too brutal. They demanded he apologize. But Ethan, drunk and out of control, refused. Instead, he cursed loudly. She deserves to get hit. She throws tantrums every damn day at home, and now she's trying to control me outside too. She's just a shameless woman who doesn't know her place. Old Master Johnson was so furious he slapped Ethan twice right then and there. You worthless scum. If you keep this up, you're no son of mine. That sobered Ethan immediately. His lifelong dream had been to inherit Fortune Group. Seeing the seriousness of the situation, he quickly bowed his head and apologized profusely. He swore he'd never fool around again and promised never to lay a hand on Emily again. To prove he was sincere, he even vowed to gift her a private estate worth over $60 million. That was all Emily needed to hear. Her anger evaporated instantly, and she softened her tone, acting as if she'd only lashed out because she loved him too much. And just like that, they made up a true match made in heaven, a fool and a scumbag. After the chaos, Emily specifically asked me to stay behind. She gave me a condescending smile and said, "Sisters fight, couples fight, it's all normal. If there's no fighting, there's no love. Don't be fooled by how bad I look now. It's really no big deal. I just need a few days to rest, and I'll be fine. Besides, everyone now knows how devoted I am to Ethan. In the end, I won." Her ridiculous rationalization was so absurd I actually laughed. "Emily, you really are cheap," I said with a smirk. "All it took was a $60 million estate, and you traded half your life for it." She looked at me with a tone full of superiority. "You wouldn't understand. Unlike your husband, mine actually comes home every night. You're practically living like a widow. What's the point of having a man if he's never around? At least I have a husband by my side." I let out a cold chuckle, my voice dripping with mockery. "I may not understand the thrill of physical fights in marriage, but I do know one thing: Ethan has very unusual tastes." He's not exactly picky about his partners, if you know what I mean. You might want to get tested for STDs. Just in case. Her face turned deathly pale. Her voice trembled as she stammered. That's impossible. He wouldn't do that to me. Even as she denied it, her hands frantically pressed the call button for hospital staff. She'd been so focused on getting pregnant and securing her position as Mrs. Johnson that she hadn't taken any precautions. While she rushed to get tested, I took the opportunity to upload Ethan's most incriminating videos, him fooling around with transgender escorts and physically assaulting Emily on multiple platforms and websites. It was the perfect time for the public to feast on the drama. The results of Emily's tests came back. She wasn't pregnant, but she had contracted several sexually transmitted diseases, some of which would stay on her medical record forever. Treatment would be lifelong, and if she still wanted children, she'd have to wait at least 3 years. Meanwhile, Ethan's scandal went viral. The internet exploded with outrage, calling him a monster for his chaotic private life and abusive behavior. Fortune Group's stock plummeted, losing nearly $570 million in value overnight. Public trust in the company hit an all-time low. An emergency shareholders meeting was called immediately. Ethan, who was vice president, had no choice but to resign. But I wasn't finished. To fully bury him, I also leaked videos exposing his closest friends, drug use, orgies, underage girls, their entire sordid history laid out one by one. They were all arrested and tested for drugs. Ethan was among them, and though his test came back negative, it didn't matter. The public had already made up their minds. No one believed him anymore. His reputation was completely ruined. With Ethan's fall, all his shares were taken back and reassigned to Lucas. At the time, Lucas had been at home casually sipping tea and carving a lotus flower bracelet for me when the news hit. In an instant, he went from being the sidelined second son to the sole heir of Fortune Group. As a teenager, Lucas had once dreamed of proving himself, of earning the same respect and recognition Ethan had always received, but over time he grew. Disillusioned with his biased parents, retreating into his quiet world of Buddhism and business indifference. Now, with power handed to him, he didn't refuse it. More importantly, couldn't. Enjoying power came with the responsibility of wielding it. Soon after, he was officially appointed CEO of Fortune Group, and I was made vice president. Not only was I one of the most powerful figures in the company, but I also controlled some of the hottest industries in the market. Just like in my past life, I wasn't just playing the game, I was winning it. I'd become unstoppable. As I reached the top 10 on the national wealth rankings, Emily was discharged from the hospital. She wasted no time and stormed into my office. Her once delicate, elegant face was now gaunt and exhausted, bloodshot eyes, dark circles, and a bandaged right hand. She looked nothing like the proud, arrogant woman she'd once been. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She charged straight at me, fury burning in her eyes. "Sophia, you shameless? How dare you steal my husband's company? I'm warning you, give everything back to Ethan immediately or else." Before I could even respond, a cold voice rang out from the doorway. Emily flinched violently, her body tense with fear. She turned around, and there he was. Lucas stood there, and a chill ran down her spine. The memories of his methods from our past life still haunted her. She swallowed nervously, forcing an ingratiating smile. "You misunderstand, Lucas," she stammered. "I was just joking with my sister. We grew up talking like this. It's just a habit. She's my own sister. I care about her deeply." Lucas scoffed coldly, his gaze sharp and piercing. "You'd better hope that's true." And he walked over to me, pulling out a lotus seed bracelet he'd spent over a month carving by hand. Gently, he slipped it onto my wrist. "Sophia, I took this to the temple for a blessing. It's been consecrated. It'll protect you from harm." His long, slender fingers bore the marks of countless tiny cuts from carving the delicate beads. His sincerity was obvious, his amber eyes warm, his voice unusually gentle. The scene deeply unsettled Emily. Her pupils shrank, her expression shifting from disbelief to seething jealousy. Our past life, she had desperately wanted his love, but all she got in return was torture and suffering. She bit her lips so hard it drew blood, forcing herself to suppress her rage. She shot me one last venomous glare, then turned and stormed out. I knew exactly what she was planning. She'd retaliate, just like in our past life. She'd try to have me killed. Meanwhile, Ethan had completely fallen from grace. The louder and more extravagant his past life had been, the colder and more desolate his present became. He'd once been surrounded by endless admirers, but now there was no one left. Instead of blaming himself, he blamed Emily, convincing himself that she was the reason everything fell apart. If she hadn't chased him down that night, if she hadn't caused a scene, he never would have been caught on video. He never would have lost everything. Fueled by rage and alcohol, he started beating Emily regularly, punching and kicking her while his true love from Thailand watched with amusement. Sometimes he would even force Emily to endure his public humiliation right in front of his drinking buddies. Even the private investigator I hired couldn't stomach the footage. He sent me a report, disgusted, saying that man is worse than an animal, and he was right. I didn't waste any time gathering evidence videos of Ethan's violence, his financial fraud, embezzlement, and involvement in smuggling. I was ready to bury him, but before I could act, Emily showed up looking for me, even bringing coffee. She asked to meet on the rooftop, the same setup as in our past life. I accepted her invitation without hesitation. When I arrived, the wind whipped through her crimson silk dress, making it flutter dramatically. Her exposed skin was covered in bruises and cigarette burns. As I stepped closer, she turned to me with an eerie smile. "Sophia," she whispered coldly, "you're really easy to fool." Confused, I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" She took slow, deliberate steps toward me, her smile twisting into something sinister. "Do you believe in past lives?" she asked mockingly. "It doesn't matter if you don't, because I do. And I can tell you one thing for certain: in our past life, you died at my hands." I said nothing, letting her continue. "This is the 27th floor," she mused, glancing at the edge of the rooftop. "If you fall from here, every bone in your body will shatter. It'll be nothing but a pile of mangled flesh, terrifying, painful death." Her grip tightened on something at her waist, a knife. "I originally wanted Ethan to destroy you," she continued. "I wanted you tortured and humiliated until you died a miserable death. But somehow you made Lucas fall for you instead. No matter. I'll just send you off myself." She pulled out the knife and pressed it against my stomach, her smile widening, eyes gleaming with madness. "Any last words?" She sneered. "If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll grant you a final wish." I let out a soft chuckle. "Since we're being honest, let me tell you a little secret too." Emily's eyes narrowed. "What secret?" I leaned in slightly, whispering with amusement. "I've always known Ethan was nothing but a pathetic, diseased piece of trash. I knew he was incompetent. I knew he had STDs because, dear sister, I was reborn too." Her eyes widened in shock. "You? But that's not the best part," I continued smoothly. "The real reason I came here tonight is because this time, you get to experience what it's like to fall to your death." With that, I lunged forward, shoving her. Panic-stricken, Emily instinctively thrust the knife at me in desperation. In that split second, the rooftop door burst open. Armed police officers stormed in, guns drawn. One barked, "Drop the weapon." Emily froze, trembling all over. I smiled, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Dear sister," I whispered mockingly, "did you really think I'd let you die so icily? That would be far too merciful." It was then she realized she'd walked straight into my trap. In a last-ditch effort, Emily tried to grab me and drag me down, but the police were faster. With a quick kick, one officer sent her crashing too. The ground I crouched beside her, smiling as I whispered, "Congratulations, sister." What was supposed to be a 5 to 10-sentence ordeal had now turned into over 10. Emily was convicted of attempted murder, 15 years in prison. The people I had arranged inside were already waiting for her. Every second of those 15 years would be pure hell for her, the day she was finally released. That would be her true judgment day. As for Ethan, his fate was sealed. He received a maximum 25-year sentence for rape of a minor, human trafficking, smuggling, financial fraud. The list went on. A man like him was the lowest of the low in prison, and even without me lifting a finger, he would be tormented until his last breath. The same day, Lucas officially stepped down from leading Fortune Group, assuming a symbolic role. He publicly declared that I would be the true leader of the company at the shareholders' meeting. He stood tall, confidently addressing the room. Sophia is more capable than any vice president this company has ever had. Only under her leadership can Fortune Group reach the pinnacle of this industry. Never say that a woman is weaker than a man, or that she can't handle this responsibility. I dare say that not a single person here, not even myself, is more qualified than her. He swept his gaze across the silent boardroom. Understand this clearly. We need her as our CEO. She doesn't need us. A long moment of silence followed. Then, Lucas stepped forward, opened the door, and invited me inside. One by one, the board members stood up, bowing their heads in respect. Good afternoon, President Sophia. I took my seat at the head of the table, a small smile on my lips. Shall we begin? Under my leadership, Fortune Group didn't just regain its former glory, it soared to the top of the industry. Every sector I invested in flourished, becoming a benchmark for success. The name Sophia Johnson became synonymous with power, wealth, and dominance. Lucas, true to his word, stayed in the background, allowing me to take full control. He continued. His quiet, reserved lifestyle, occasionally attending industry events when necessary, but behind closed doors, he was anything but distant. With each passing day, he grew more possessive, indulging in his newfound obsession. As for Emily, prison shattered her. The arrogant woman who once boasted about her status was gone. Years of torment had broken her spirit. When she was finally released, she was nothing but a shell of her former self. The moment she stepped outside, reporters swarmed her, ready to broadcast her disgrace. But she never made it far. That same night, she disappeared, vanishing without a trace. Rumors spread. Some said she fled the country in shame. Others claimed she was taken care of by the very people she had wronged. I never bothered to find out what happened to Ethan. He didn't last long. Within a few years, his body was found. Lifeless in his cell, cause of death unknown. No one mourned him. No one cared. And I stood at the top, looking down at the empire I had built. The revenge I sought was complete. The power I craved was in my grasp. The man I once thought untouchable, the cold, distant Lucas Johnson now belonged to me entirely. One evening he leaned in, his deep amber eyes fixed on mine. His voice was low and magnetic. Sophia, he murmured, tracing a finger along my wrist where the lotus seed bracelet still rested. You have everything now. Power, wealth, respect. Tell me what's next. I smiled slowly, knowing exactly what I wanted. The world, I whispered. And with that, I sealed my fate. As the woman who had truly achieved it all,